The stars stretched endlessly in all directions as Captain Jake Morrison stared out the main window of his ship. The New Horizon had been his home for 3 years now, carrying human colonists and supplies to the Outer Rim worlds. Jake had seen many strange things in space, but nothing had prepared him for what was about to happen. The bridge was quiet except for the soft hum of the ship's engines. Lieutenant Danny Walsh sat at the communications station, checking routine. Messages from Earth. Behind him, navigator Lucy Chun plotted their course through the Kepler 442 system. It was supposed to be just another survey mission, another chance to map unexplored planets for future human settlements. Jake took a sip of his coffee and looked at the star charts on his screen. The Galactic Council had given humans permission to explore this sector only 5 years ago. Before that, humans were considered too young and primitive to venture far from Earth. The Council had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years, and they made sure everyone knew it. The 12 species that made up the Council were ancient beyond human understanding. The Zelleri had achieved spaceflight 50,000 years ago. The Kovani had built their first starships 40,000 years before. Humans even discovered fire. These elder races had created a civilization that spanned 40,000 worlds, bringing order and peace to the galaxy. At least, that was what they told everyone. Danny suddenly sat up straight at his station. Captain, I'm getting an emergency signal from the Pioneer. Commander Lisa Walsh is requesting immediate assistance. Jake set down his coffee cup. The Pioneer was a human research vessel that had been exploring the third planet in the Kepler 442 system for the past 2 weeks. Lisa Walsh was one of the best commanders in the human fleet, not someone who would call for help unless something was seriously wrong. Put her through, Jake ordered. The main screen flickered to life, showing Lisa's face. Her usually calm expression was replaced by excitement and worry. Behind her, Jake could see the busy bridge of the Pioneer with crew members running back and forth. Jake, you need to get down here immediately, Lisa said without any greeting. We found something incredible on the planet's surface. Something that doesn't make sense. What kind of something? Jake asked, leaning forward in his chair. Lisa looked around nervously before speaking. Ruins, massive structures that are older than anything we've ever seen. The dating scans show they're at least 60,000 years old, maybe older. Jake felt his heart skip a beat. 60,000 years old would make these ruins older than the oldest known Zelari settlements. That was impossible, according to everything. The Council had taught them about galactic history. Are you sure about those dates? Jake asked. We've run the tests 5 times. Dr. Ryan Cooper is down there with the archaeological team right now. Jake, these aren't just any ruins. They're human. The bridge fell silent. Lucy stopped working on her navigation charts and turned to stare. At the screen, Danny's fingers froze over his keyboard. Even the soft hum of the engines seemed to quiet down. What do you mean they're human? Jake asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Lisa's voice was barely above a whisper. The proportions, the architecture, the doorways and corridors, everything is built for human-sized beings. But that's not the strangest part. We found writing, Jake. Human writing systems that don't exist in any of our historical records. Jake stood up from his captain's chair and walked closer to the screen. Lisa, humans have only been in space for 200 years. We didn't even have written language 60,000 years ago. Our ancestors were still learning to make stone tools. I know what it sounds like, Lisa replied. But you need to see this for yourself. The evidence is undeniable. These ruins were built by humans, or at least by beings exactly like us. The question is how that's possible. Jake turned to his navigator. Lucy, how long until we reach the planet? About 6 hours at maximum speed, she answered. Do it, Danny. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we have a priority discovery that requires immediate attention. Don't give them details over open channels. As the New Horizon changed course toward the planet, Jake couldn't stop thinking about what Lisa had told him. The Galactic Council had very specific rules about archaeological discoveries. Any ruins older than known civilization had to be reported to them immediately. The council claimed this was to preserve galactic heritage, but Jake had always suspected. There was more to it. The council's version of history was simple and clear. The Zellery had been the first to reach the stars, followed by the other founding species. They had spent thousands of years building galactic civilization, bringing peace and order to younger races. Humans were newcomers, barely out of their caves when the council was already ruling thousands of worlds. But if there were human ruins that predated the council's oldest settlements, then everything they had been taught was wrong. 6 hours later, the New Horizon entered orbit around Kepler 442c. Jake could see the Pioneer in the distance, its lights blinking against the darkness of space. The planet below was mostly brown and gray, with no signs of current life. But somewhere on its surface were ruins that might change everything humans thought they knew about their place in the galaxy. Jake assembled his senior staff in the briefing room. Along with Lucy and Danny, he had brought Chief Engineer Kate Miller and Security Chief Ben Carter. These were the people he trusted most, and they would need to work together to figure out what they were dealing with. What we're about to see down there might be dangerous, Jake told them. Not just physically, but politically. If these ruins are really human and really 60,000 years old, then we're looking at evidence that could shake the foundations of galactic civilization. Kate raised her hand. Captain, what if the council tries to claim the ruins for themselves? They've done that before with other species' discoveries. That's exactly what I'm worried about, Jake replied. We need to document everything before anyone else gets here. Once the council knows about this, they'll want to control the investigation. Ben leaned forward across the table. Should we contact them immediately? Council law requires reporting of significant archaeological finds within 24 hours. Jake was quiet for a moment. The council's laws were strict, and breaking them could result in serious consequences for humanity. But something told him that this discovery was too important to hand over without understanding it first. We'll follow the law, he finally said. But we're going to make sure we have complete records of everything we find. If these ruins really are human, then we have as much right to study them as anyone else. The shuttle trip to the planet's surface took 30 minutes. As they descended through the atmosphere, Jake could see the ruins spread across a vast area. The structures were massive, built from some kind of dark stone that had survived 60,000 years of weather. From the air they looked like a city that had once housed millions of people. The shuttle landed near the Pioneers' base camp, where Lisa was waiting with Dr. Cooper and the archaeological team. As Jake stepped out onto the planet's surface, he felt the weight of history pressing down on him. Somewhere in these ruins were answers to questions that humanity had never even thought to ask. Dr. Cooper approached them with a datapad in his hands. He was a thin man with gray hair and excited eyes. Captain Morrison, I've been studying these ruins for 2 weeks, and I still can't believe what we're seeing. Come with me. I want to show you something that will change how you think about human history. As they walked toward the nearest structure, Jake realized that nothing would ever be the same again. The stars that had once seemed so vast and empty now held secrets that had been hidden for thousands of years. And somewhere in these ancient ruins was the truth about who humans really were and what they had once been capable of achieving. Dr. Ryan Cooper led Jake and his team through the massive stone doorway of the main structure. The walls were smooth and dark, carved from a single piece of material that looked like black marble. But as they walked deeper into the building, Jake noticed something that made his skin crawl. The corridors were exactly the right height for humans. The doorways were perfectly sized for human proportions. Even the steps were built for human feet. This is impossible, Lucy whispered as they walked. Humans weren't even human 60,000 years ago. Dr. Cooper stopped at a large chamber filled with stone tablets and metal panels. That's what we all thought, he said, but look at this. He pointed to symbols carved into the wall. These aren't random markings, they're writing, human writing. Jake stepped closer to examine the symbols. Some of them looked familiar, like ancient versions of letters he had seen in Earth's oldest museums. But others were completely unknown, complex patterns that seemed to tell a story he couldn't understand. Have you been able to translate any of it? Jake asked. Dr. Amy Foster has been working on it, Cooper replied. She's our best linguist. Amy, come show them what you found. A young woman with short brown hair walked over carrying a tablet. Computer. Amy Foster looked tired but excited, like someone who had been working without sleep for days. Captain Morrison, what we're seeing here is revolutionary. This writing system is definitely human, but it's more advanced than anything. In our historical records? Amy showed them her tablet, which displayed dozens of symbols with translations underneath. I've been able to decode about 30% of the basic symbols. The language they're using is incredibly sophisticated. It's like they had thousands of years to develop it. What does it say? Ben asked. Amy scrolled through her notes. Most of it is still unclear, but I found references to something called the Terran Stellar Federation. There are star charts, population records, and what looks like diplomatic correspondence with other species. Jake felt his heart racing. Other species? Which ones? That's the strangest part, Amy replied. The names match species that are part of the Galactic Council today. The Zalari, the Corvani, the Draconis. But according to these records, humans were in contact with them over 50,000 years ago. The group stood in silence as the implications sank in. If humans had been in space for 50,000 years, then everything the Council had told them about galactic history was a lie. Jake turned to Dr. Cooper. What else have you found? Cooper led them to another chamber where his team had set up computers and scanning equipment. We found technology, Captain, lots of it. Most of it is too damaged to work, but some pieces are still intact. Kate Miller, the chief engineer, immediately walked over to examine the ancient devices. This is incredible, she said. The design is clearly human, but the technology is far beyond anything we have today. Look at this power cell. It's been sitting here for 60,000 years, and it still has energy. That's not the most amazing part, Cooper said. Follow me. They walked deeper into the ruins, passing more chambers filled with ancient human artifacts. Jake saw furniture built for human bodies, tools designed for human hands, and artwork that depicted humans in what looked like spacesuits. Everything pointed to the same impossible conclusion. Cooper stopped at a heavy metal door that had been partially opened. This took us 3 days to get through. The locking mechanism is incredibly complex, but what we found inside changed everything. The chamber beyond the door was filled with intact technology. Glowing panels lined the walls, and in the center sat a device that looked like a computer terminal. Amy Foster was already working at it, her fingers dancing across controls that seemed to respond to her touch. It's some kind of data storage system, Amy explained. The interface is intuitive, like it was designed for humans to use. I've been able to access some of the files. She pressed a series of buttons, and the chamber filled with light. A holographic display appeared above the terminal, showing a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy. But this wasn't the galaxy as Jake knew it. This map showed thousands of worlds marked with human symbols, connected by lines that represented trade routes and communication networks. This is a map of the Terran Stellar Federation, Amy said. According to the data, it existed for over 15,000 years and controlled more than 8,000 star systems. Jake stared at the map in amazement. The Federation had been huge, spanning much of what was now considered Council space. What happened to it? Amy's expression grew dark. That's where the story gets disturbing. The later records talk about something called the Great Purge. The Council species, led by the Zalari, formed an alliance against the Federation. Why would they do that? Lucy asked. Fear, Amy replied. The humans had developed technology that the other species couldn't match. They were also different philosophically. While the Council believed in strict hierarchies and control, the Federation practiced equality and cooperation. The record suggests that the Council saw human influence as a threat to their authority. Dr. Cooper pulled up another file. This is the most complete record we've found. It's from the last Federation commander, someone named Admiral Marcus Stone. The hologram changed to show a human man in what looked like a military uniform. He was middle-aged with gray hair and tired. eyes. When he spoke, his words appeared as text on the screen while Amy translated. This is Admiral Stone's final log entry. He says that the Federation capital has fallen and the last human fleets are in full retreat. The Council forces are systematically destroying human colonies and eliminating any trace of Federation technology. Jake felt sick to his stomach. They committed genocide. It gets worse, Amy continued. Stone says that the survivors are being hunted across the galaxy. The only option is to find a world far from Council space and start over. He mentions a planet in the outer rim that they're calling Earth. The chamber fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Jake thought about Earth, the world humans had always believed was their original home. But according to these records, it was actually a refuge for the survivors of an ancient human empire. There's more, Amy said quietly. The records mention other survivors, groups of humans who escaped to different parts of the galaxy. If this is true, then there might be other human colonies out there, colonies that maintain their advanced technology. Ben stepped forward. We need to report this to Earth Command immediately. If there are other human colonies, we need to find them. No, Jake said firmly. We can't report this yet. Not until we understand more. Captain, this is the biggest discovery in human history, Cooper protested. We have to tell someone. Jake turned to face his team. Think about what we're dealing with here. We have evidence that the Galactic Council committed genocide against an ancient human civilization. Do you think they'll just accept that information and apologize? Kate nodded slowly. They'll try to cover it up. They might even try to eliminate the evidence. Exactly, Jake said. We need to document everything before anyone else knows about this, and we need to be very careful about who we tell. Amy looked up from the terminal. Captain, there's something else. The system is still connected to something. I'm getting signals from other locations. What kind of signals? It's like a network. The Federation built communication systems that are still active after all these years. I think some of them are responding to our presence here. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. If the ancient Federation network was still active, then the technology they were dealing with was far beyond anything he had imagined, and if there were other locations sending signals, then the survivors Amy had mentioned might still be out there. Can you trace the signals? Jake asked. Amy's fingers flew across the controls. I'm getting responses from at least 6 different star systems. The signals are automated, but they're definitely coming from Federation technology. Jake made a decision that would change everything. We're going to follow those signals. But first, we need to make copies of everything we've found here. If the Council tries to destroy this evidence, we need to make sure the truth survives. As his team worked to document the ruins, Jake couldn't stop thinking about the implications of their discovery. Humans weren't newcomers to the galaxy. They were the descendants of an ancient civilization that had once ruled the stars. And somewhere out there, other humans might be waiting for them to return. The question was whether they could uncover the truth before the Council realized what they had found. Because if the Council had committed genocide once to maintain their power, they might be willing to do it again. High Chancellor Vextar stood in the center of the Great Council chamber on Zentara Prime, his tall gray form casting long shadows across the polished floor. The Zelari leader had called an emergency meeting of the Inner Council, something that had not happened in over 300 years. Around him sat the most powerful beings in the galaxy, representatives of the 3 species that truly controlled the Galactic Council. To his left sat General Korthak of the Corvani, a massive creature with thick armor-like skin and small red eyes that missed nothing. The Corvani had always been the Council's military arm, their natural aggression channeled into maintaining order across the galaxy. Across from them lounged Ambassador Sirith of the Draconis, her serpentine form coiled elegantly in her floating chair. The Draconis were the Council's spies and information gatherers. Their network of agents spread across every civilized world. The humans have found something, Vextar began, his voice carrying the authority of 50,000 years of Zelari rule. Our agents report the discovery of ruins on a planet in the Kepler 442 system, ancient ruins. General Korthak leaned forward, his massive hands gripping the edge of the table. How ancient? What kind of ruins? Vextar activated a holographic display that showed surveillance images taken by a cloaked council probe. The images revealed the massive stone structures that Jake Morrison and his team had been exploring. According to our analysis, these ruins predate our oldest settlements by at least 10,000 years. Ambassador Sirith's forked tongue flicked out nervously. That is impossible. The historical records clearly show that the Zalari were the first to achieve interstellar travel. There were no advanced civilizations before us. The records show what we wanted them to show, Vextar replied coldly. But these ruins are real, and they appear to be human in origin. The chamber fell silent. All three species knew the truth about humanity's ancient past, though it had been buried for so long that most council members had forgotten it ever existed. The Great Purge had been necessary to maintain order, but it had also been the council's greatest secret. General Korthak stood up, his massive frame towering over the others. If the humans have found evidence of the Federation, then we have a serious problem. The younger council species have always questioned our authority. If they learn that we built our civilization on the graves of another species, there will be revolt. More than revolt, Sirith added. The humans have colonies on over 200 worlds now. If they learn their true history, they will demand answers. And if they find the old Federation technology, Vextar nodded grimly, then they will have the power to challenge us directly. The Federation's technology was superior to ours even 50,000 years ago. If any of it still functions, it could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. The High Chancellor activated another display, this one showing current military positions throughout Council space. Our agents report that the humans are being very secretive about their discovery. They have not filed the required archaeological reports, and they are limiting communications with their homeworld. Smart, Korthak admitted grudgingly. They know we would seize control of the site immediately, which is exactly what we must do, Vextar declared. The humans cannot be allowed to uncover more evidence. The Federation's secrets must remain buried. Sirith's eyes glowed with a dangerous light. What are you proposing? A military expedition. Vextar replied, We will claim that the humans have discovered technology that poses a threat to galactic security. The Council has the authority to seize any dangerous artifacts for the protection of all species. Korthak smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. And if the humans resist? Then we will remind them why the Council has maintained peace for so long. The younger species must understand that there are consequences for challenging our authority. As the Inner Council made their plans, Captain Jake Morrison was making discoveries that would change everything. The ancient Federation network had responded to their presence, and signals were coming in from locations across the galaxy. Amy Foster worked frantically to decode the messages, her excitement growing with each new breakthrough. Captain, you need to see this, Amy called out from the ancient terminal. I've managed to connect with 3 other sites. They're all Federation installations, and they're all still active. Jake hurried over to the terminal where Amy was working. The holographic display showed a star map with blinking lights marking the locations of the active sites. Where are they? The closest one is in the Vega system, about 40 light-years from here. The others are much farther out, near the galactic rim. But Captain, that's not the most important part. Amy pulled up a new file, and Jake's heart stopped. The display showed a detailed schematic of what looked like a massive space station. But this wasn't just any space station. It was clearly designed for warfare, with weapon systems that appeared far more advanced than anything the Council possessed. This is a Federation defense platform, Amy explained. According to the records, they built hundreds of them throughout their territory. They were designed to activate automatically if the Federation ever came under attack. Are you saying these platforms are still out there? Jake asked. Not just out there? They're responding to our signals. The network is treating our presence Here is a sign that the Federation is returning. I think these platforms are preparing to come online. Before Jake could respond, Danny Walsh's voice crackled over the communication system. Captain, we're detecting multiple ships approaching the system. They're not broadcasting identification signals. Jake felt his blood run cold. He had been expecting this, but it was still a shock to see how quickly the Council had responded. How many ships? 12 confirmed, with more arriving every hour. They're maintaining position at the edge of the system, but they're definitely Council vessels. Jake turned to his team. We're out of time. The Council is here, and they're not going to let us continue our investigation peacefully. Dr. Cooper looked up from his work documenting the ruins. Captain, we've barely scratched the surface of this site. There could be years of research here. And then we better work fast, Jake replied. Amy, can you download the entire database from that terminal? Amy's fingers flew across the controls. I'm trying, but there's too much data. The Federation kept detailed records of everything. It would take weeks to copy it all. Copy what you can, Jake ordered. Focus on the most important files. Star charts, technology specifications, and anything about other human colonies. As Amy worked, Jake contacted the other human ships in the system. Commander Lisa Walsh reported that her team had found similar ruins on 2 other planets, both showing signs of the same ancient human civilization. Commander Pete Johnson, leading another survey team, had discovered what appeared to be a Federation shipyard on a moon in the outer system. The evidence is everywhere, Lisa reported. The Federation wasn't just a small colony. It was a massive interstellar empire that covered this entire region of space. Jake made a decision that would put his entire crew at risk. All teams prepare for immediate departure. We're going to follow those network signals and find the other Federation sites before the Council can stop us. Captain, that's extremely dangerous, Ben Carter warned. If we leave now, we'll be running from the Council fleet. They'll consider us fugitives. We're fugitives already, Jake replied. The moment we discovered this site, we became a threat to everything the Council has built. Our only chance is to find enough evidence to expose the truth before they can silence us. As the human teams prepared to leave the ruins, Amy made one final discovery that would change everything. Hidden in the deepest files of the Federation, database was a record that made her gasp in shock. Captain, there's something else. The Federation didn't just have colonies scattered across the galaxy. They had a plan for this exact situation. Jake looked at the data Amy had found, and his eyes widened. The Federation had anticipated that they might be defeated, and they had prepared for the possibility that their descendants would one day return to reclaim their heritage. Hidden throughout the galaxy were not just defense platforms and technology caches, but entire colonies of humans who had maintained their advanced civilization in secret. According to this, there are Federation colonies that survived the purge, Amy said quietly. They've been hiding for 50,000 years, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. Jake realized that they were not just uncovering ancient history. They were about to reunite with humans who had never lost their place among the stars. The question was whether they could reach these hidden colonies before the Council fleet caught up with them, as the New Horizon prepared to leave the planet. Jake took one last look at the ancient ruins. Somewhere in those stones lay the bones of a civilization that had once ruled the galaxy. But if Amy was right, that civilization's children were still out there, waiting for the chance to reclaim their birthright. The stars that had seemed so empty now held the promise of reunion and the threat of war. The Council would not give up their power easily, but they were about to learn that the humans they had tried to destroy had never truly been defeated. The New Horizon raced through space at maximum speed. Its engines pushed to the limit as Captain Jake Morrison tried to stay ahead of the Council fleet. Behind them, 12 Council warships followed in pursuit, their powerful weapons ready to fire at any moment. Jake knew they couldn't outrun the Council ships for long, but they had to reach the Vega system before their enemies caught up. Amy Foster sat at her station, still connected to the ancient Federation network through a portable device she had taken from the ruins. The network was more active than ever, sending signals across the galaxy as if it had been waiting 50,000 years for this moment. Her screen showed dozens of locations lighting up as ancient systems came online. "Captain, something incredible is happening," Amy called out. "The network is spreading. Every time we connect with a new site, it activates others. It's like the Federation built a galaxy-wide communications system that's been sleeping all this time." Jake looked at the display, showing their pursuit. The Council ships were getting closer, and their weapons were charging. "Can you contact any of the sites directly?" "I'm trying, but most of them are automated systems." "Wait, I'm getting something from the Vega system. It's not a recording. Someone is actually responding." The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a human face. But this wasn't like any human Jake had ever seen. The man looked young, maybe 30 years old, but his eyes held the wisdom of centuries. He wore clothes that seemed to be made from materials that didn't exist in modern human civilization. "Greetings, children of Earth," the man said, his voice carrying a strange accent that sounded both ancient and familiar. "I am Commander Alex Stone of the Federation Colony Vega 7. We have been waiting for you." Jake felt his heart racing. "Commander Stone, are you related to Admiral Marcus Stone?" The man smiled sadly. "Marcus Stone was my ancestor, many generations removed. He led the survivors to the hidden colonies after the Great Purge. We have maintained Federation technology and knowledge for 50,000 years, waiting for the day when our cousins from Earth would return to the stars." "This is impossible," Lucy whispered. "How have you stayed hidden for so long?" "The Federation learned from its mistakes," Alex replied. "We built our colonies in places the Council would never think to look. Dead systems, empty space, regions they considered worthless. We've been watching the galaxy, waiting for the right moment to reveal ourselves." Before Jake could ask more questions, Danny Walsh shouted from his station. "Captain, the Council. Ships are opening fire." The New Horizon shook as energy blasts struck its shields. Jake grabbed his chair as the ship lurched to one side. "Return fire, all weapons." But even as the human ship fought back, Jake knew they were outgunned. The Council ships were bigger, more heavily armed, and there were 12 of them. The New Horizon wouldn't last long in a direct fight. "Commander Stone, we need help," Jake called out to the screen. "The Council fleet is trying to stop us from reaching you." Alex Stone's expression grew serious. "We know. We've been monitoring Council communications since you activated the network. They're planning to destroy all evidence of the Federation's existence. Can you help us?" "Help is already on the way," Alex replied. "The Federation may have fallen, but our defenses did not. Activating the network has awakened systems that have been dormant for millennia." As if summoned by his words, space around the New Horizon began to change. Points of light appeared in the darkness, growing brighter as ancient technology powered. Up for the first time in 50,000 years? Jake watched in amazement as massive structures materialized out of what had seemed like empty space. "What are those?" Ben Carter asked, staring at the screen. "Federation defense platforms," Amy answered, her voice filled with awe. "They've been hidden all this time, waiting for the network to call them back to life." The platforms were enormous, each one the size of a small moon. Their surfaces were covered with weapons that looked nothing like modern technology. As Jake watched, the platforms began to move with impossible grace, positioning themselves between the New Horizon and the Council fleet. General Korthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the impossible sight before him. The Federation platforms had appeared out of nowhere, their technology so advanced that his sensors could barely detect them. He had fought in many battles, but he had never seen anything like this. "Sir, our weapons are having no effect," his tactical officer reported. "The platforms have some kind of shielding that deflects everything we throw at them." Korthak growled in frustration. "How is this possible? The Federation was destroyed 50,000 years ago." "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from one of the platforms." The main screen showed a human woman with silver hair and eyes that seemed to glow with inner light. She wore a uniform that was clearly Federation in design, but it was made from materials that seemed to shift and change color as she moved. "I am Admiral Sarah Kane of the Federation Defense Force," she announced. "You are in violation of Federation space. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Korthak laughed, showing his sharp teeth. "The Federation is dead, human. Your pathetic colonies cannot stand against the might of the Council." "The Federation never died," Sarah replied calmly. "It simply went into hiding. But now that our network has awakened, we are returning to reclaim what was stolen from us." "You're outnumbered," Korthak snarled. "My fleet will destroy your platforms and hunt down every last Federation survivor." Sarah smiled, and suddenly the space around the Council fleet filled with light. More platforms appeared, dozens of them, each one bristling with weapons that made the Council ships look like toys. But these weren't just defense platforms. Jake could see ships among them, vessels that moved with the fluid grace of living things. "You are outnumbered, General," Sarah said. "The Federation has had 50,000 years to prepare for this moment. Did you really think we would hide without building our strength?" The Council fleet found itself surrounded by Federation forces that seemed to have appeared from nowhere. Korthak realized that his ships were no match for the ancient technology surrounding them. The Federation weapons could destroy his entire fleet without effort. "This is impossible," he muttered. "How did you hide all of this?" "The same way we hid our colonies," Sarah replied. "The Federation learned to use technology the Council never imagined. We built our platforms in dimensions you cannot see, powered by energy sources you do not understand." Jake watched in amazement as the Federation fleet took position around the Council ships. The ancient human technology was beautiful and terrible at the same time. The ships moved like living creatures, their hulls seeming to flow and change as they maneuvered. "Commander Stone, what happens now?" Jake asked Alex. Stone appeared on the screen again. "Now we reveal the truth to the galaxy. The Federation has been preparing for this moment for 50,000 years. We have evidence of the Council's crimes, and we have the technology to back up our claims." "The other Council species won't believe us," Jake said. "They've been taught that the Council brought peace and order to the galaxy." "They will believe when they see the evidence," Alex replied. "The Federation kept detailed records of everything, including the Great Purge. We have proof of the Council's systematic elimination of human colonies. Proof that will shock the galaxy." Amy looked up from her station. "Captain, I'm getting signals from Federation colonies across the galaxy. They're all coming online, all revealing themselves at the same time. There are hundreds of them." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The Federation hadn't just survived the Great Purge. They had been growing stronger, waiting for the right moment to return. And now that moment had come. On the Council flagship, General Korthak faced a choice that would determine the fate of the galaxy. He could order his fleet to fight, knowing they would be destroyed by superior Federation technology. Or he could retreat and face the wrath of the Inner Council. "Sir, what are your orders?" his tactical officer asked. Korthak stared at the Federation ships surrounding his fleet. Their technology was beyond anything he had imagined. The Council had spent 50,000 years believing they were the masters of the galaxy, but they had been wrong. The humans had never been defeated. They had simply been waiting. "Signal the retreat," he ordered quietly. "We're returning to Zentara Prime." As the Council fleet withdrew, Jake realized that everything was about to change. The Federation was returning to the galaxy, and they were bringing with them technology and knowledge that would challenge everything the Council had built. The stars that had once seemed empty now blazed with the light of human civilization, returning to claim its rightful place among them. The ancient technology had awakened, and with it the true heirs of the galaxy were ready to reclaim their birthright. 3 months after the Federation's return, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of the ancient flagship, Terran Dawn. The massive ship had been hidden in a pocket dimension for 50,000 years, and now it served as the mobile headquarters for the new Terran Federation. Through the transparent walls, Jake could see hundreds of ships from dozens of different species gathering for the most Important meeting in galactic history. The news of the Federation's survival had spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had been part of the Council for thousands of years were asking questions about their own history. The younger races were demanding answers about the Great Purge, while the older species were trying to distance themselves from the inner Council's crimes. "Captain, we're receiving the final confirmations," Amy Foster reported from her station. 47 species have agreed to attend the assembly. Only the inner council members are refusing to participate. Jake nodded as he watched the ships. Arriving, the Althany had been the first to break away from the council, followed quickly by the Nexari and the Corvan. These younger species had always felt oppressed by the council's rigid hierarchy, and the revelation of the Federation's true history had given them the courage to demand change. "Any word from Earth?" Jake asked. "President Lavra Hayes is on her way," Amy replied. "Her ship should arrive within the hour. She's bringing representatives from all the major human colonies." Jake smiled. The reunion between Earth humans and their Federation cousins had been emotional and complicated. The Earth humans had built their civilization from scratch, believing they were alone in the universe. The Federation humans had maintained their advanced technology and knowledge, watching over their distant relatives from the shadows, but despite their differences, they were still the same species. The same drive for exploration, the same curiosity about the universe, the same desire to help others. Within weeks of first contact, the two groups had begun working together to rebuild the Federation. "Commander," Alex Stone approached Jake from across the observation deck. The Federation commander had become Jake's closest ally in the past few months, helping him understand the complex history of the galaxy. Alex carried a datapad containing the latest intelligence reports from Federation agents throughout Council. "Space. The situation is deteriorating rapidly," Alex reported. "The Inner Council is losing control. 6 more species have declared independence in the past week. The Corvani military is split between those who support General Korthak and those who want to join the Federation." "What about the Zalari?" Jake asked. "High Chancellor Vextar is trying to maintain order, but his own people are questioning his authority. The Zalari have always prided themselves on being the galaxy's elder race, but our evidence shows that humans achieved spaceflight thousands of years before they did." Jake looked out at the gathering fleet. Ships that had been enemies for centuries were now working together, united by the common goal of creating a better galaxy. The Federation had offered something the Council never could: true equality and cooperation between species. "Sir, President Hayes has arrived," Amy announced. Jake and Alex made their way to the docking bay to greet the Earth delegation. President Hayes was a tall woman with graying hair and intelligent eyes. She had led humanity through some of its darkest hours, and now she was about to help reshape the galaxy. "Mr. President," Jake said, extending his hand. "Welcome to the Terran Dawn." "Captain Morrison," she replied, shaking his hand firmly. "I have to admit, when I first heard about ancient human ruins, I never imagined it would lead to this." Behind her walked Dr. Ryan Cooper, who had become the Federation's chief historian. He carried with him the complete archives of the original Federation evidence that would be presented to the Galactic Assembly. The records detailed not just the Great Purge, but also the Federation's achievements, the technologies they had developed, the peaceful relationships they had built with other species, and the democratic principles they had championed. "The evidence is overwhelming," Dr. Cooper explained as they walked through the ship's corridors. The Federation had established trade relationships with over 60 species, many of which are now part of the Council. They had solved problems that the Council still struggles with today: resource distribution, territorial disputes, and technological sharing. They entered the main assembly hall, where representatives from across the galaxy were taking their seats. The hall had been built using Federation technology, its walls showing holographic displays of the galaxy as it existed during the original Federation's time. The images showed a universe of cooperation and prosperity, very different from the rigid hierarchy that had replaced it. At the center of the hall stood a podium where the evidence would be presented. Jake took his place among the Earth delegation, while Alex joined the other Federation colony representatives. The tension in the room was thick as species that had been enemies for centuries sat, side by side. Ambassador Tylara of the Alphinae stood to address the assembly. Her people had been among the first to break away from the Council, and she had become a leader in the movement for galactic reform. "Friends and allies," she began, "we gather here today because we have learned that our entire understanding of galactic history has been built on lies. The Council told us that they brought peace and order to the galaxy, but the evidence shows that they destroyed a civilization that had already achieved these goals." The holographic displays showed images from the Federation archives, humans working alongside aliens, sharing technology, solving disputes through negotiation rather than force. The contrast with the Council's authoritarian methods was stark. Dr. Cooper stepped forward to present the evidence. The Federation existed for over 15,000 years, during which time they established peaceful relationships with dozens of species. They developed technologies that we are only now beginning to understand. And they did all of this without the rigid hierarchies and military enforcement that the Council considers necessary. The representatives listened in stunned silence as Cooper detailed the Federation's achievements. The records showed that the Federation had solved the energy crisis that still plagued many Council worlds. They had developed medical technologies that could have saved billions of lives. They had even found ways to terraform dead worlds, turning them into gardens that could support life. "Why was this kept secret?" asked Representative Versh of the Nexari. "Because the Council feared what it represented," Cooper replied. "The Federation proved that species could work together as equals. They showed that advanced technology could be shared freely without creating imbalances of power. The Council's leaders knew that if other species learned about the Federation's success, they would demand the same freedoms, as the evidence was presented. Jake noticed that several Council species were becoming increasingly uncomfortable. The Draconis representative had left the assembly halfway through Cooper's presentation. The Corvani delegation was arguing quietly among themselves, but the most dramatic moment came when Admiral Sarah Kane stepped forward to address the assembly. The Federation Defense Force commander had become a symbol of humanity's return to the stars, and her words carried the weight of 50,000 years of hidden history. "The Federation never sought to rule the galaxy," she said. "We sought to serve it. We believed that all species had the right to determine their own destiny, to grow and develop according to their own nature. The Council taught you that hierarchy and control were necessary for peace. But we proved that cooperation and equality could achieve the same goals with far less suffering." The assembly erupted in discussion as species representatives debated among themselves. The younger races were eager to embrace the Federation's vision of equality, while some of the older species worried about losing their privileged positions. President Hayes rose to address the assembly. "Earth stands ready to help build a new galactic community based on the Federation's principles. We don't seek to replace the Council's authority with our own. We seek to create a system where all species have a voice in their own governance." The vote, when it came, was overwhelming. 43 species voted to dissolve the Galactic Council and establish the new Galactic Federation. Only the inner Council members and their closest allies refused to participate. As the assembly concluded, Jake realized that they had witnessed the birth of a new era. The galaxy would never be the same. The rigid hierarchies that had defined galactic civilization for millennia were crumbling, replaced by a vision of cooperation and equality that humans had first championed 50,000 years ago, outside the assembly hall. Jake looked out at the stars and thought about the journey that had brought them to this moment. It had started with the discovery of ancient ruins on a forgotten world. It had led to the reunion of humanity with its lost children, and now it was reshaping the entire galaxy. The Federation had returned to the stars, not as conquerors but as teachers. They brought with them the wisdom of ages and the promise of a better future. The galaxy was changing, and for the first time in 50,000 years, it was changing for the better. The stars that had once seemed cold and empty now blazed with the light of renewed hope. Humanity had reclaimed its place. Among them,